we're trying to draw a connection from a disconnecting note, and I get it that it flows and that it's in the sentence, but this entire section gave me a little bit of difficulty when I read through it by myself. Nonetheless, we will trust to the parish that there is more depth that I am not fathoming here. So we have defined the characteristics of the land, and that allows our Parshat to have certain personal characteristics about it, and what he is producing in his sons creates something different, and perhaps something different from what the other sons were, but again, we're tying it as a reference to him. So we will leave that conflict in my mind alone and move on. Et Shalach, with Shelach, number 3, this has the stabilizing et nachta. So you'll notice that words, when they reach either an et nachta or sof pasuk, will have a lengthening of the vowel sound. So the son's name really is Shelach, and that's what we have in the English interpretation here. But because it's at an et nachta, it gets more importance, and that's why the name gets the longer vowel sound et Shalach. Number 3, as a father, our Parshat reproduced with Shelach a replica of himself, as shown by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark. So we're interpreting the stabilizing influence of the et nachta to say that he was just like his father. He had all the characteristics of his father. And again, we said that all the sons had a direct influence from Shem, which was more a philosophical and elevated influence. So Shelach gets the highest qualities by being able to imitate our Parshat. Vishelach, number 4, and Shelach, with a tipcha, so this is going to focus us a little bit backwards on what come from before, and then pause slightly afterwards. The son was attentive to his father, and Shelach continued to follow in that path. He discovered older tribes of Shem on the east of the Tigris, Ashurim, and was inclined to be a man of spirit, as referred backwards by the directional shape of the reading mark. So we are going to focus back on the spirituality that we have implied to our Parshat, that our Parshat influenced into Shelach. So he is going to have that spiritual influence, and he is going to have geographically influence from those people who are, quote unquote, back there, and that's why we get influence through Ashur. The other son of Shem. We have a note. Shelach v'Shalach. This repetition of the name Shelach cannot be compared to Moshe Moshe or Yaakov Yaakov, which authenticates a just man, tzaddik, because the vav of Vishelach constitutes a division, the vav of hafradah, the vav of separating things out, and it follows an et nachta. So quite often we will see that God will cry out, Yaakov Yaakov, or Moshe Moshe. And this has a number of interpretations, and one of them is that somebody who is righteous deserves to have his name elevated by having it mentioned twice in a row. However, here we see that, number 1, the notes separate out those two words. Et Shalach, et Nachta, large pause. Vishelach, so the two words really are quite separated, although when you will find Moshe Moshe or Yaakov Yaakov, there will always be a psik, there will always be a defined separation in between them, but that's just to say because you've repeated a word twice, that is a device that you will always find in Torah, that when you have the same word twice within the same phrase on the same side of an etnach taras or pasuk, that those two words will have a minor pause in between them, but this is a major pause. And not only is it a major pause, but it's got a vav, vishelach, and shelach. So the and is yet another differentiation. So we're not applying the rule of saying a name twice elevates the name, because we have distinctly separated out these two names by two different devices. So shelach does not get the same elevated status that we would have applied to Moshe or Yaakov.
Okay, so before we even saw the note, the first thing that popped in my mind also was, why do we repeat Shelach's name twice? So why repeat it at all as opposed to using I guess that would be a pronoun, he, like you say Shelach, and then they could say and he. What they actually, there's always a purpose and for duplicating things. So why would they say the name twice? Why would it be written twice at all?
So you'll see by the time we get to the end of the sentence, by the time we get to the end of the pasuk, that what we're trying to say here is that the nature of the Father is being passed on fairly completely or as good as can be to the Son, and then the Son is going to do the same thing. He's going to pass on to his Son with relatively, whoop, are we all okay?
You okay?
We're all fine.
And she said it calmly.
And we're going to see that the transmission is good and accurate and as faithful as it can be. Maybe we're going to pause the tape and let people discover what's going on and then come back.